Good afternoon, and welcome to the 2026 State of American Business. Please take your seats. Our program is about to begin.
At the turn of the 20th century, America was a land of limitless possibility. The skyline rose with steel and ambition, bold, daring, and unstoppable. Fueled by the American dream, small-town entrepreneurs built companies that reshaped industries and uplifted their communities. Innovation became the heartbeat of our nation. In 1912, local business leaders united with a shared purpose: to create a single voice dedicated to defending free enterprise, empowering businesses to serve people, provide solutions, and strengthen society. That voice became the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, committed to advancing economic freedom and opportunity for every American. For over a century, we've been a driving force at the crossroads of progress, shattering barriers, fueling growth, and creating opportunities for people building better lives. We don't just support business, we ignite it. From local startups to global enterprises, we create an environment where potential thrives, empowering communities, leaders, and creators to transform bold ideas into lasting impact. Working with and for a local, national, and global federation of partners, we fight for American businesses in the courts, in state capitals, in Washington, and on the world stage. Steadfast in our principles, unwavering in our resolve, uncompromising in doing what's right. This is America's story, written with vision, bound by conviction, illustrated through courage, and enriched by the hard work of everyday people, local business owners, and global visionaries who continue to define us. It's an enduring legacy of strength, determination, and shared ambition. One we proudly build upon as we work to write the next chapter of our nation's story. Join us. Together, let's build a future of growth and opportunity for the pursuit.
Please welcome founder and chairman of Hillwood Development Company and chair of the board of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Ross Perot, Jr.
Thank you. It's a very exciting day for the American Chamber. Good afternoon and welcome to the State of American Business. As chair of the United States Chamber of Commerce, I'm proud to welcome you to this historic headquarters. All of you in this room represent strength, diversity, and the spirit of American business. In one way or another, each of you plays a role in setting the course for our country and its prosperity. Many of you are members of this great chamber, spanning businesses in every state, community, business sector, and of every size, including some of the great historic companies in this nation, Hilton and J.P. Morgan Chase. J.P. Morgan has been a member of this chamber for over 100 years, and we'll be hearing from both of these great leaders later today. As I see a lot of the leaders in this room, there are a lot of small, exciting, and growing businesses. I see that Dynamic Automotive is with us tonight, and Dynamic won the Chamber's Top 100 Small Business Award this year. Congratulations to Dynamic Automotive. And many of the Chamber's stakeholders and allies are also here. Board members, association leaders, state and local chamber partners, and other like-minded organizations. We're all joined by state and national policymakers and influencers, as well as a number of global allies and representatives of America's most trusted trading partners and America's closest friends. And finally, I'd also like to welcome members of the business community from across this country and around the world who are joining us virtually today. Thank you all for everything you do to drive opportunity and prosperity in America, and thank you for joining us. For more than a century, this building has been a place where deals have been done, where America's ties with the world have strengthened, and where industry history has been made. As Suzanne often says, the mission of this institution hasn't changed since its founding over 114 years ago. Throughout this time, the U.S. Chamber has kept America on track for growth and aligned with its founding principles. Both of these things are still incredibly important today. And let's start with growth. The Chamber is focused on keeping America growing at 3% or even better than 3%. Growth is much more than just a statistic. It is the speed at which people's quality of life improves in their communities and across this nation. We should always aspire to be a country where innovation and advances in productivity lead to constant improvement in people's lives. The U.S. Chamber's agenda of policy recommendations and its portfolio of practical business-led solutions is aimed at securing that continuous growth. Growth depends on many conditions, but perhaps the most important of them is the nation's free enterprise system. This year marks the 250th anniversary of the signing of Declaration of Independence and the beginning of our democracy in this great American dream. Our American dream has always been hinged on personal liberty. That liberty includes not just concepts in the Declaration or the Bill of Rights, but it's also the freedom to determine our own destinies. Economic freedom, the freedom to choose a career, to turn an idea into a business, or to vote with your dollars. As a son of a businessman and a businessman myself, free enterprise is something that's very personal to me and my team. Whether it was watching my father build his business in the 60s, and I literally watched the American dream unfold in my living room, or when I first went into business in the 80s, the spirit of free enterprise has changed my life over and over again. And it has done the same for countless others. Free enterprise is a source of opportunity in every community, and it's unleashed the greatest period of progress in human history. Even so, there are no guarantees that future generations will choose to respect and harness this tremendous power. That's why the U.S. Chamber is so committed to winning the contest for the future. Growth will have an even bigger impact on future generations. And standing up for free enterprise is about making sure the American dream continues for our children and our grandchildren. Business people believe in this dream. We're optimistic. We're inherently optimistic if you're in business. If you're running a business, you know that the future is going to get better. The decisions we make now, as business leaders, as policymakers, and as citizens, will help determine whether that future will remain bright and our best days will continue to be ahead of us. Today's event, we're focusing on the future. We hold this event every January, and we're looking across the next 12 months to cast a vision, set an agenda, and prepare ourselves to deliver a clear message on behalf of American business for this year. This year will be a little bit different, and Suzanne's going to tell us all why it's a little different. And it's my pleasure to work with and introduce Suzanne Clark, the President and CEO of the United States Chamber. The business community needs an inspiring, optimistic, and visionary figure to serve as our leader. And I'm not sure there's anybody who can do a better job than Suzanne. She puts her heart and soul, her strength and intelligence into everything she does, and she is perfectly suited to lead in this moment of our nation's history. As she travels our nation and the world, she exemplifies the entrepreneurial spirit, the optimism and patriotism that make American business such a great force of good. Thank you, and I'd like to now introduce Suzanne to deliver the State of American Business Address for 2026. Suzanne Clark, thank you.
This moment in our nation's history transcends a year. It's a moment that calls for us not just to think about months or quarters, but really decades or even centuries. We've seen 250 years of daring and striving and growing. That's what's brought us here. Hundreds of millions of people pouring their energy and their talent all here, all into this great American experiment of democracy, this great American engine of free enterprise. And it has formed the most exceptional country in history. The British political theorist Edmund Burke said that this is a contract, society is a contract between generations who have died, generations yet to be born, and generations that are here among the living. What does our generation owe the future? What is our role in that contract? How can we keep a promise made 250 years ago, not only for our children and grandchildren, but for the generations to come, generations we will never, ever know? Will we keep that promise? This is a year to ponder these really big questions. It's not just because we're at a milestone that calls for reflection. It's because this is a moment today where it feels that we need more vision. We are requiring vision. We're begging for a path to a brighter future. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a year for choosing. Not only is it America's 250th anniversary, but it's a year when these competing visions for America's economic future, they feel like they're coming to a head, right? Americans are seeking solutions to very real and very pressing economic challenges. Inflation remains stubbornly high, everything from groceries to utilities, things in their daily lives. It feels expensive. Household budgets are getting squeezed. The limited housing supply is pushing up prices. We're making homeownership affordable for too many or too few younger Americans. We hear all the time about health care, right? That affordability is hard, that access is hard. People worry about it. It isn't new, but we've had decades of partisan attempts to try to fix it that have not worked. And we are desperate for a bipartisan solution that could address the problem, that could address affordability, access, and innovation. And what about jobs? Do you go anywhere where someone isn't talking about jobs, or an employer isn't really concerned about where to find workers? Where a human isn't really worried, do I have the skills I need? Are there going to be opportunities that I need? And then you have the whole AI over it. We're optimistic about the long term, but there's a general sense of unease about the future of work. Now, to be clear, there is a lot to celebrate about our standard of living, and that has a lot to do with growth and a lot to do with free enterprise. But we'd be wrong to deny the frustration that so many Americans are feeling. And we'd be really wrong to ignore the implications of those feelings, because what we're seeing is voters who are really desperate for solutions, really thinking about these challenges, and a growing number of them are willing to consider alternatives to the status quo, willing to throw out capitalism and try something completely different. Now, it's not lost on me that the last time we were celebrating a big milestone in our country's history, America was in a similar mood. Who remembers 1976? My God, that makes me feel really old. There were like 4 people who remember 1976. Okay, I'm hopeful that some of you are too old that you no longer remember 1976. So I was in Englewood, Ohio. I told somebody it was a suburb of Dayton, and they were like, oh, we thought Dayton was the suburb. No, Dayton is a very big city in Ohio, I'll have you know. But I was in Englewood, Ohio, and I remember waving my little bicentennial flag as the parade came down the main street. But you know what else I remember about that main street? The gas lines. As a 9-year-old, you don't really know what malaise means, but you get the mood. And what we were looking at in 1976 as a country, 5.7% inflation and rising, 7.7% unemployment. You're looking at soaring energy costs, a ballooning regulatory state, stagnating productivity, shrinking cities, rising crime. And this is all living under the shadow of the Cold War, right? And these nuclear threats we were so aware of at the time. There was this rising fear that American dynamism might have peaked, might be passing. Now, many of those things didn't just happen. They were the direct results of choices made by our government officials. It was 40 years of New Deal policymaking in which both parties adopted wage controls, they adopted price controls, instituted massive new regulatory agencies. Anybody remember a 70% marginal top tax rate? And that's just a few of the really bad choices that were made. But, you know what's really cool? America is really good at getting better. And 50 years ago, the people in charge, and the people in charge are the voters, they decided that they had to make a choice. And they had to make a choice between free enterprise and an economy dominated by markets, or an economy that was directed by the government. And we know what happened. They chose free enterprise. They elected leaders, Republicans and Democrats alike, who could usher in a whole new era of growth, of innovation, investment, and it was fueled by low taxes, stable regulations, and robust trade. As a result, here is what a child born in 1976 has witnessed in their 50 years. A threefold increase in American GDP, a 40% rise in US median household income, an 87% decline in global extreme poverty, a US revolution that made us the world's top energy producer, the rise of the largest service and knowledge economy in the world, transformative technologies, the personal computer, the internet, smartphones, AI, unprecedented medical breakthroughs. We've seen gene editing and 3D bioprinting. Look, despite all of our challenges, and we all like to focus on them, we live in an era of abundance and advancement. Our capital markets remain the strongest in the world. Global talent comes here. They choose America. Household net worths are at record highs. Consumers have more choices, more conveniences, more leisure. Diseases have life-changing treatments, life-saving cures. But just like in 1976, we're at a hinge point today. We're at a time for choosing. Every American wants the same thing. We want to fix what's broken without breaking what's right. The question is how? So let's imagine a child born today. What will her life look like in 2076? Well, it depends on the decisions our nation makes and the path we all choose. So let's assume that we choose the path of economic growth fueled by free enterprise and the right policy decisions are made. We embrace AI. We lead the world in smartly regulating it. We rethink and retool education and workforce training for the future of work. We prioritize R&D investment so that we're continuously driving innovation. We support that innovation through a stable and predictable regulatory environment. We finally fix permitting so we can build houses, so that we can modernize physical and digital infrastructure. We stop the trial bar from undermining our entire justice system with frivolous lawsuits that drive up prices for American families. And we protect those hard-won permanent tax reforms that made the U.S. tax code competitive. We ensure the U.S. is a great place to do business. We remain open to the world, open to the global exchange of talent and goods and ideas and innovation. These are the core pro-growth policies the U.S. Chamber will advance this year and, of course, beyond. We'll continue working with this administration and Congress to achieve them because they are the fastest, surest way to sustainable 3% growth. And 3% growth is the fastest, surest way to raise living standards, and that's a goal we all share. These pro-growth policy choices begin to alleviate pressures and frustrations people feel right away. And they mean that the girl who's born today will enjoy the security, mobility, and opportunity Americans dream of when she's an adult. Here's what her future might hold. By 2076, her living standard and the living standard of all Americans has tripled. GDP per capita has risen from just over $69,000 today to $250,000. The average household's annual income is up from nearly $87,000 today to $382,000. A steady influx of tax revenue and efforts to right-size government through tech-enabled efficiency has stabilized the nation's finances, enabling long-term investment in R&D and infrastructure. The social safety net is sound. The U.S. maintains global leadership through strong relationships and commercial diplomacy. We're setting the standards for trade, for technology, for governance. The pace of innovation has accelerated. We're looking at breakthroughs in AI and quantum, in medical science, in space, in energy. And these advances, they're not just powering productivity, they have revolutionized daily life, disease eradication, personalized medicine, and all of the above, energy abundance, they're now the norm. As a result, life expectancy, quality of life have soared, giving this generation decades more of healthy, active living. A more mobile, opportunity-rich society has emerged where talent flows freely, barriers to advancement have eroded, geographic mobility is supported by a robust housing supply. Cities have been entirely rebuilt, designed for resilience and affordability, and connected by modern infrastructure that makes high-speed travel and digital connectivity seamless. For this child, choices that are unimaginable to us today. Careers in fields that take human creativity, enable them with AI efficiency, homes in vibrant new urban centers, and a life expectancy that stretches well beyond a century. The promise of 2076 is not just material wealth, but a society where innovation, opportunity, that's what defines the American experience. But I want to be really clear about something. This isn't utopia. This is growth. And the sooner we prioritize it and sustain it, the sooner people today will see their fortunes rise. We don't have to wait until 2076 to reap these benefits. Growth will not solve all of our problems, but we can't solve any of them without it. So let's consider the alternative path. Where does that take the child born today? I'll call it the path of managed decline. So let's imagine that those who claim capitalism is broken and bad, they're the ones in charge. Those who declare there is no problem too big, no concern too small, that the government shouldn't step in and solve it. And they're the ones calling the shots. What do they choose? They choose wealth redistribution over wealth creation. They crowd out innovation with regulation. They restrict the movement of goods and talent. They put government in charge of really basic business decisions. They let government decide who can own and run a business, how big that business can get. They let government decide if Americans can work, how they can work, where they can work. What does that mean for growth? One study compared socialist countries with non-socialist countries. The socialist countries underperformed 2 to 2.5 percentage points on growth. So, under managed decline, instead of 3% growth, we might have 0.5 percentage point of growth, or less. Here's how that changes life for today's child in 2076. Under 50 years of managed decline, the federal debt burden has crowded out private investment, leaving very little room for innovation or advancement. Entitlement programs are on the brink of insolvency. It's forcing painful cuts in the social safety net. Families are struggling as household wealth, it's low, the accumulation's low, the promise of upward mobility is fading. 0.5% growth means GDP per capita rises from $69,000 today to $72,000. Household income rises from nearly $87,000 to $112,000. But remember, this is over 50 years. That's no increase at all. That is a brutal reduction in the standard of living. Meanwhile, businesses have lost the AI race to China. We're ceding leadership in biotech and energy. The US economy, once the global engine of progress, now trails behind. America's dependent on foreign technology, foreign supply chain, foreign critical resources. Mobility declines as cities stagnate, fewer new homes are built, and infrastructure is crumbling under decades of deferred maintenance. The housing crisis, left unsolved, leaving millions of people out of that opportunity. To sustain an expanding government, taxes are rising sharply, funding more services but triggering a business and wealth exodus. Entrepreneurs and capital are fleeing to more competitive markets, deepening the cycle of decline. For this child, adulthood means navigating a world of limited choice. For this child, she's growing up, we've got careers that are constrained by slow growth, cities locked in time, a society where innovation feels like a relic in the past. Life expectancy gains have stalled. Quality of life improvements are modest. Under this grim scenario, the American dream, once synonymous with mobility and possibility, has narrowed to survival within a rigid system. It's a future where ambition is tempered by scarcity. Ladies and gentlemen, this is no choice at all. This is not the future the founders envisioned. This is not the promise we've made to our children. This is not upholding our contract with the next generation. So for those who may be thinking, this will never happen in America, people will never choose socialism. Well, the Overton window, it grows wider every day. And what people are willing to consider, what they're willing to think about, it's opening up. And you know, the thing about veering off course is frequently not just a sharp turn, right? It could be a series of small steps in the wrong direction. We've got to choose to stay on course. We've got to choose to stay on this path of growth and opportunity. Free enterprise is not a perfect system, but it's the best one we got. It's the best one that's ever been tried. And you know what's great? It's the best at getting better. It's the system that enables businesses to respond to people, to respond to problems. We need it to address the challenges we're facing today. And future generations will need it to address the challenges that they face. And every generation needs it to seize the opportunities not yet imagined. I believe this choice hinges on something really simple. You might be thinking that it's policy or public opinion, but it's much more essential than that. You know what I think it is? I think it's fear. So if the well-worn words of FDR just pop to mind, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, he was right. Fear is a powerful emotion. And when candidates or elected officials speak to people's fears and stoke people's fears, the wrong decisions are made. Choosing redistribution over growth, that's a fear-based choice. It's a zero-sum mentality. It leads to scarcity, not abundance. Government control over free market forces, that's a bet on bureaucracy, and it's a bet against people. Regulation over innovation, that's also a fear-based choice because it says, you know what, it's easier for me to imagine all the things that can go wrong, all the things I need to be protected from, than all the things that could go right. Protectionism over global engagement, that's a fear-based choice too. That's not strength, that's not self-interest, that's fear. And at our essence, us together, we're not a fearful nation. It's not in our DNA. But it's occurred before in history. And in those moments, we've demonstrated a remarkable capacity for renewal. We go back to our intrepid origins. We reflect on really remarkable innovations. And we remember who we are and what we're made of. Because America is the best at getting better. And I believe that this can be a moment where we all decide that it is time to start daring and striving and growing and improving again. So you may be wondering as I wrap up my address, if I'm ever going to wrap up my address, you may be wondering, what is the state of American business. I'll tell you what it must be. At this moment for choosing the state of American business, it must be fearless. Growth-oriented, yes. Market-driven, of course. Future-focused, absolutely. But above all, fearless. It is going to take courage and audacity to lead our nation. There are changes on the horizon. And whenever there are big shifts in history, right, there's short-term pain on the way to long-term gain. Government and business are going to have to work together to really support all Americans through this transition with a vigorously and consistently growing economy. We have to be fearless. Fearless like the early Americans who crossed oceans and crossed a continent to build lives and businesses and communities and industries from nothing. Like the inventors who weren't deterred by failure, never giving up, and ultimately gifting humanity with electricity, the printing press, the assembly line, the 3D printer. We have to be fearless like the farmers who gave up the horse and plow for combines driven by electricity, GPS enabled. My favorite, we have to be fearless like small businesses who risk every penny, borrow every possible dollar to bring an idea to life. Those who've dreamed and designed great cities, who've connected them with each other and with the world. The industries and companies that dared to put planes in the sky, rockets, satellites, and people in space. We put people in space. That's not a fearful country. We have people who've invented and then audaciously put every bit of human knowledge in a device that fits in your pocket. And they're continuing to push all the limits of science and technology. And we have to be fearless like the people who are going to create and imagine things we can't even think about today. We have to be fearless because it's our legacy and because it's our future. When you think about 250 years in history, it's a blink. And if you think about all that we have accomplished in that very short time, it's breathtaking. Some of the people who came to America 250 years ago in pursuit of individual economic, political freedom, they had nothing to lose, absolutely nothing. My great-great-great-grandfather came here as an 8-year-old. We don't even know who brought him. I'm positive that he had nothing to lose. Other people who ended up here fought for generations for those freedoms. But today, we have nothing to lose and vastly more to gain, vastly more to give that next generation, if we choose to. So imagine with me what the next 50 years might hold. And together, let's make it so, because we are not in the business of dreaming. We are in the business of doing. And the Chamber of Commerce of the United States will fearlessly do its part to strengthen our nation's future. It's up to us.
Please welcome President and CEO of Hilton Worldwide, Chris Nasetta, and co-founder and co-chairman of Carlyle, David Rubenstein.
Chris, thank you very much for being here. You've been the CEO of Hilton for 18 years.
David, it's a pleasure to be with you, but I have to say, Suzanne's speech was great, but it went a little bit long, because what you don't know is David was just grilling me, giving me a very long list of his complaints that he has
I'm going to get to this.
in our hotels.
Well, I'm going to ask you about
it was
these.
not a short list, and so I didn't
sure
have
people
I had no way of recording all of your
complaints.
complaints.
We'll go through those.
All right, well, let's...
You've been the CEO of Hilton for 18 years, right?
I have, yeah.
And how many more years are you going to do?
A lot. I know Jamie Dimon's coming next, so 5 years.
Okay.
5 years. That seemed to work for him. No, it's a question I get. I'm 63 going on 64, so it's different than when I started and I was 45, and you think and everybody else thinks you're going to live forever. And so I do get increasingly from investors the question of not only how long are you going to do it, but who's next. And obviously we have a super robust succession planning process, and we have an incredible team that's developing really nicely. And I say to our investors, I say to our board, I love what I'm doing. I am definitely, have a lot of energy and passion for it. And I don't do well doing nothing. I love working, so I'm going to do it for 5 or 10 more years.
So a competitor of Hilton, you were working for a competitor of Hilton. Host,
I was.
And then Blackstone decided that they wanted to buy Hilton, and they recruited you, John Gray recruited you to be the CEO. At that time, how many hotels were there in the Hilton system?
We had about 3,000 hotels.
How many do you have now?
2007. We probably today, we're opening about 3 hotels a day in the world right now. So I can't give you the exact count. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 4. My guess is somewhere around 9,400. So we're triple the size.
When the hotel was bought by Blackstone, at one point there were some problems. The financial markets had a hiccup, you could say, and they had to put more money in. Did you worry that your career might be over and the company might not survive? Did you ever worry about that?
Of course I did. The Great Recession was hard on us. We were an LBO, leveraged buyout. You know a little bit about the private equity business. So we had a really good strategy, and I was building a great team, but we got punched in the face, and we had a mountain of debt that we needed to service. And so there were definitely a few sleepless nights, but to their credit, Blackstone not only stood by us, but invested incremental dollars. As it turns out, I was with Steve Schwarzman. I think you and I are in the same place, maybe in Saudi Arabia, and we were riding together to an event. And he said, we never, in the end, needed to put that money in. It was really insurance. We would have made it through anyway, which we would have. But I think it made us all feel better to have a lot more equity. And the truth is, we had a really good strategy. And we're building a lot of momentum. We had a really good team, and I believed in it, and they believed in it. And as a result, we went from, sort of the poster child for what was going to be the greatest private equity loss in history, because it was a $6.5 billion investment, to Blackstone making 4 times their money. Ended up being, I think still, there's one deal pending. I think it is still today the largest private equity profit in history.
Since you took the company public under Blackstone, the stock is up
a lot.
And
last I checked,
how many different?
You had a higher number, so I like your number better than my number. But
well, it's pretty high. So
like 700% or 800%.
That's correct.
Like that. Yeah.
So let me ask you, how many different brands do you have? What's your best brand? Highest price brand?
Highest, they're like children. I have 6 daughters, as you know, and I love them all. In fact, some of their friends are here. So there is no favorite. The highest price point is Waldorf Astoria. We have 26 now. We launched a new brand this morning. So
what's
the
the
26th
new brand
is Apartments by Hilton. We're getting into the furnished apartment business because our customers tell us they want that.
Let's suppose I want the lowest price thing you have. What is your lowest price brand?
The lowest pricing we have would be Spark by Hilton, which is premium economy, which actually is the most game-changing thing in a simple way that I think when I look back on my career at Hilton will be the most disruptive thing that we've done, because what we figured out was in the economy space, generally it's where old hotels go to die, right? I mean, if you stay in, I'm not going to name brands, but you know them all, roadside inns, it's a dog's breakfast of product quality, no service. And what we figured out is customers at that price point, nobody wants that, right? There's got to be a way to engineer an outcome that gives them a good product and good service. And so we spent a lot of time and effort, and we figured out from a supply chain point of view, from a operating model point of view, how to do it. And while these hotels are all converted from all those other brands, they have to go through an incredibly rigorous reinvestment process and follow all our rules. And the brand is, off and running. We'll have thousands and thousands of Sparks. We already have 300 of them.
What percentage of people book their hotels directly, and what percentage go through, let's say, travel agents?
We're about 80% direct and 20% indirect.
And in terms of the artificial intelligence, how is that changing your hotel company? Is artificial intelligence?
It's changing it in I think, incredible ways. There's obviously risk in AI for all of us across business, but I think for us, certainly in our business, there's more opportunity than risk. There's some of the mundane things like being more efficient in some of the back of house functions. Of course, all of us are going to do that. There's some distribution efficiencies, but the real game-changing stuff, because it's what we do. We're at Hilton, it's about the stay experience. It's about what we deliver for customers. So you think about all the ways that customers interact with us digitally before they ever come to us and after they leave us. And with all the information we have now, and with AI allowing us as a tool to be able to manage that information and create a much different kind of experience, we can have a much better digital experience. And then think about all these hearts and souls that are working. We have 500,000 people in our, that work for us in these hotels. We now can give them the tools so that when you're on property, we can mass customize, because we have so much information on what every customer wants in the moment. When they have a problem, we can fix it, and so the experience on property, I think AI is going to allow us to revolutionize. And we're already out. You'll see it. We're beta testing all sorts of really interesting things that I think are going to be.
Suppose somebody comes to the hotel 11 o'clock at night. They don't have a reservation, and they say, "I don't have a reservation."
Their name is David Rubenstein?
No, they don't have a reservation. They say, "I need a room. Do you have a room?" And they say, "Yes, the room is $500." The person says, "Well, I only have $400." Can the person at the desk lower it to $400, because the room is going to go away. Nobody's going to sleep in it if you don't.
I try and tell David this every time. You're rich, so we're not going to do that for you.
But how do you,
our algorithms actually are good enough to know it's David Rubenstein, and the buzzer goes off.
But do they have
do
they have any authority?
They do. They do have the authority.
A little authority.
They do have the authority.
What is the biggest complaint that people have when they go to a hotel? Biggest complaint?
It depends. I mean, I think the things people care about are what you would think. They care about their bed and they care about their bathroom the most. Okay. So the biggest complaints will be when those things aren't right.
Now, I notice in bathrooms, in these showers that you have.
Here we go. Is this the state of American business?
They come down from the ceiling, and then they have the other ones that come at you kind of perpendicular. Why do you need two shower heads? Why don't you just have one?
To make sure you're paying attention.
Okay.
Like so.
And are you really?
No, I agree with you that we try not to do that. Okay. Showers I have like a fixation on getting showers. You know, a bigger problem we have is sometimes when our teams do the fixtures in the wrong way, where you turn the shower on, you get cold water in your face to turn the shower on. That's a bigger problem. Well, people really don't like that.
Now, Mr. Hilton once went on the Johnny Carson show.
Yes, he did.
And what was the biggest advice he had about hotels?
His advice was, and it's still really good advice because there's still a lot that exists. He said, my best advice is when you're going to take a shower, put the curtain inside the shower.
Right, in the tub, so that doesn't leak out.
It's inside the tub.
It used to be that I went to a hotel, they'd have shampoos and they have soaps. Now it's all stuck on the wall there. Is that really saving the environment that much?
The way I'd like you to reframe that is, it's like a spa experience. I mean, when you go to a high-end spa for the last 20 years, what did you get? When you go and you're getting ready to get your fancy massage, you get, you have those,
But is that saving the environment? And also, you can't read what it is sometimes. If you don't have your glasses on, how do you know it's shampoo or conditioner? What do you know?
Here's what I'd say. It's a lot better for the environment, and it's a lot better product, meaning they're bulk amenities, so we can buy them in bulk. They're much better from a packaging point of view, and as a result, we've upgraded our products by 2 or 3x. So it's much better product. You obviously are staying with our competitor brands who do this less well than we do. David, are you a Hilton Honors member? And if so, at what level?
I don't know what I'm a member of. I don't know.
Oh, but here we go. So, you're probably staying with the other big competitor.
Do people care about that much? I mean, people are obsessed over these.
We obviously are data-driven on everything. Customers love it. Obviously, you don't, but customers love it.
Right.
Customers love the new amenity
What percentage of people?
The only thing they don't like is they can't steal it.
Oh, really?
Well, think about it. How many of you in this audience have those little, individual amenities that you've taken? Yeah, like everybody. Well, that's not good for us. You guys stealing, don't take the towels either.
People aren't stealing those things off the wall. So
they don't steal them off the wall.
What percentage of people actually check out of a hotel? When I was growing up, my mother always said, check out of the hotel, make sure they know you left.
It's funny.
Does anybody check out anymore?
I haven't checked out of it. Now, I run the business, but even before I ran this business, I never check out of a hotel. You'd be amazed, 90%.
All right. What percentage of people?
Everybody feels like they sort of have to do it. We're very good at billing, so all you really have to do is walk out, and I assure you, everything that you've spent, you'll
What percentage of people, when they have their bags carried up to the room, actually do not give a tip to the person carrying it?
That's a low percentage, but very few hotels, other than luxury, do you have bell service anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
Everybody's just wheeling.
Because everybody's got a wheelie, and literally there are people that get emotional, like, don't touch my bag, they don't want it, they probably don't want to give a tip, but more importantly, they don't want people messing with their bag, and they got a wheelie.
What percentage of people leave a tip for the person that cleans the room?
Very low.
Under 5%?
No, 10.
10%. Okay.
10%.
And what percentage of people...
I'm glad I, brushed up. I knew you'd ask all these things.
So when you go to a hotel and you want to use...
Are we going to talk about the state of American business?
When you want to use a television.
Television.
Every hotel has a different buttons
had a list
and so
of
forth.
complaints.
Can't you guys customize?
We did. We have patented a system. We call it Connected Room. It's being deployed in the United States and then around the world. It's about half deployed, half our system that does all that. And you'll love it. That's hopefully some people have seen it where you walk in the room, it knows you, your name's on the screen, it knows what you watch. It will build tiles of your favorite channels. You'll know where everything is. It's really easy. The audiovisual in rooms over time has been horrifically bad, and most people do with third-party providers. And about 5 years ago, I said, all the third parties, there may be some in here, they just don't do a good job. We're gonna have to do this ourselves. So it takes time, but we're almost done.
Now you say you lose money on mini bars. How can you lose money? The prices are very expensive on those mini bar things. Why do you lose money on that?
We have largely gotten rid of, other than in a luxury context. It is a double dissatisfier in the sense that we lose money, a lot of money in mini bars when we had them and where we do have them. And customers hate it because you have to charge them a lot. Even to lose money, you have to charge them a lot. There's just a huge amount of labor associated with managing a mini bar and restocking it and seeing what everybody uses.
You lose money on room service too?
We lose money on room service too, most places.
Really? Wow. So
it's a service you provide at a high-end hotel because there's an expectation and the customer wants it, so it gets built into the rate. But in and of itself, we don't make money.
And what percentage of people come in and they're not happy and they say, don't you know who I am?
We don't make money in restaurants and hotels.
You don't make money in restaurants?
We make money in catering, but we don't, the outlets like a typical restaurant. We really don't, a very low margin business. Again, it's an amenity you need to have.
What percentage of people say, I'm not happy, and don't you know who I am? Does that ever happen?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know. Okay.
Have you ever said that?
I never complain. No. I just take it what it is. But I'm going to stay in your hotel, so there's nothing to complain about, right? So if I want to really spend a lot of money, and I don't care about the cost, what is the best hotel experience that you can give me?
I'll set you up. We have at the Waldorf Astoria in the Maldives, we have a private island. I think it's $150,000 a night. But you will get accommodation. You can take your whole family, a private island, fully staffed, as a staff of 30. You can sleep probably 30 people. Wedding, you can do a wedding, whatever you'd like. I'll give you a discount. Okay. We'll do it for $100.
Now, you have built the most expensive hotel in the United States was somebody paid $2 billion for a hotel in New York City, a Chinese group, and you're managing it for 100 years. It's called the Waldorf Astoria, now open.
Beautiful. If you haven't, those that are in New York, stop by and see it. The Waldorf Astoria is obviously an iconic hotel, sort of invented luxury hotels, in the world. 100 years ago, and then over many, many years of lack of investment went into disrepair. We sold it, you're right, for the largest price ever, any hotel ever captured, $2 billion to a Chinese company. That Chinese company failed, was taken over by the Chinese government, and they have fully renovated it, and if you haven't been in it, I promise you won't be disappointed. It is extraordinary. They have invested a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and capital.
Now, of all the hotels you manage, how many do you actually own?
Zero.
Zero. You just manage them.
We manage or franchise.
Franchise.
License.
And what's more profitable for a company like yours, manage it or franchise it?
Franchising. It's just franchising's, a trickier business. There are more risks associated with the business because you don't have control, but the margins are higher.
Now, are you finding that people from certain countries, Europe or Canada, are not coming to the United States right now for whatever reason, or that's not a big problem?
That's definitely. I mean, if you look at, like last year was a tough year for business in the U.S. on a same-store basis. You had a lot going on. You had, Liberation Day. You had the government shutdown, which is definitely not good for business. You had, the government, the DOGE efforts, which cut huge amounts of government travel. And then, on top of all that, you had inbound international that was down pretty materially, most materially from Canada. I mean, Canada, Mexico in the beginning, but that recovered. But Canada still has not recovered, double-digit
With
declines.
the 250th anniversary this year, maybe a lot of people will visit the United States, or people in the United States will visit other cities, and you have the World Cup. You expecting this to be a good year for hotels?
I think it's going to be, I'm optimistic about this year. First of all, I mean, math, comps are easier because you had a lot going on last year. But for the reasons that you talked about, we have America's 250, the wind up to the 28 Olympics. You've got the World Cup that's going to be a big boon to business. And my own belief, I'll talk about what I think American business is going to see this year. I think, obviously, there's been a ton of noise in the system, particularly last year, that's created headwinds. You've also, what we've seen in our business is definitely the K economy on steroids, meaning, if you think about the hotel business, all the people in this room love luxury, and, you love luxury, I love luxury, but the bulk of the business is in the mid-market. It's those people that aren't doing as well, that Suzanne was talking about, that can't afford groceries and their power bills and all that. And so that's showing up in if you look at our business last year, definitely the high end was up, 6 or 7, and everything else was down a little bit because, the mid-market is really suffering. I'm pretty optimistic. I'm an optimistic sort, but I'm pretty optimistic about this year. And so the question, I'll ask the question for you, David. Why, Chris, would you be so optimistic about this year? You seem, are you going to let me go? Good.
Okay.
And I would say, number one, we have all these events going on in our business. That's good. But if I lift up way up above, the noise and look at the macro, inflation is continuing to come down. Rates, you can argue about how fast whatever rates are coming down. You're in probably one of the biggest deregulatory environments that we've seen in a long time. Tax policy is fixed and favorable for a few years. You're in the wind up to what I think will be one of the great productivity booms driven by AI, just like the internet. Now, is there underbelly, soft underbelly? Of course, but there is always with innovation. But I think, productivity it creates an engine of growth. And then the investment cycle, which takes time, is really fairly unstoppable, at least for the next few years. And what do I mean by that? The obvious, the AI, the data centers, all of that, but it's beyond that. During the Biden administration, they approved a $1.6 trillion infrastructure bill. Less than 20% of that money has been spent. 800 billion chips. Less than 10% of that money has been deployed. So if you put the whole AI thing along with core infrastructure, along with chips, and you look at an environment with lower rates, productivity boom, lower regulatory environment, tax-friendly, I intellectually have a hard time. I can't tell you, February gets better, March. I think this year is going to be better than last year. And I think next year is going to be better than this year simply because I don't think these forces are stoppable very easily. They eventually will,
When
change.
people pick hotels, what's the most important factor, location or price?
Both. Location first, then price, then brand.
And dynamic pricing, how much will it vary? You change the prices of rooms if it's a hot area or bad time or so forth.
It
does that
changes
change
every
day?
minute of every day.
Every day you change it.
They're changing every minute of every day depending on what's going on. I mean, we're very sophisticated revenue management system. So it depends what's going on in the local environment, in the demand patterns, booking patterns. We're, and it's a tricky balance because we're trying to fill, out into the future. So somebody might pay us, $100 for one night, or we can get somebody to pay us $90 for 3 nights. You might be better off taking the $90. So our algorithms are quite sophisticated, but they're being, everything we have is being repriced.
Your employees, how many employees do you have?
500,000.
500,000. How do you make certain that they're legal employees? I mean, that they're legally in the United States. You have to deal with that. I assume it's a big problem.
We have an incredible HR team, and we have super rigorous processes to make sure everybody is legal.
Okay, and today, why should some young person want to join the hotel industry? I'm graduating from college or business school, and I want to be in an industry that's going to grow. Why would I want to be in your industry?
Well, I mean, I'm a decent example of free enterprise, what it can do. I mean, I started out like 5 blocks down the street at 4th and C Street plunging toilets.
That was your first job.
They called it Code Browns, it's sort of my team always hates it when I say that, but and I run one of the biggest companies in the world now, and so it's a good testament for free enterprise. But the point of why to get in the hotel industry is there's a huge amount of, it's one of the biggest industries on earth. It is about 10% travel and tourism of global GDP, a little bit less in the US. It's 1 in 10 jobs in the world, 1 in 5 new jobs. It's one of the fastest growing industries on earth. And coming out of COVID, all of that accelerated. And it's a super interesting, complex business that does get, I used to say, I shouldn't say this either, but I used to say frequently, and like we end up sometimes feeling like the Rodney Dangerfield of industries. Right. Everybody wants to be a private, everybody wants to be David Rubenstein, or like when I was growing up, everybody wanted to be an investment banker. And everybody, then everybody wants to be a private equity. Now everybody wants to be venture capital. Now everybody wants to, whatever, right. AI, whatever it is. And the reality is those are all, fine pathways, but in our industry, they're, to a degree, because it is a little bit less competitive against some of those others, there's huge opportunity to deliver alpha in your career, because if you're smart and you work hard, you put your hand up and you contribute, you can do some pretty amazing things, and you can, end up
I'm in a hotel probably
every night?
80% of the nights. I'm on hotels all the time. So,
me too.
The biggest complaint I have is...
Back to complaints.
Is the person next door to me...
This is not good. These are customers
The person next door to me is in a rock band and they're rehearsing. And has anybody ever had this problem where somebody next door is playing the music too loud? What do you do when somebody does that? You call the front desk, and do they ever...
You call the front desk and we'll move you. And if the hotel's sold out...
You don't move them. You tell them you move me. Okay.
Well, it depends.
I can call you.
We may throw them out, or we'll move you. We'll fix the problem. Again, if you stay with us, it sounds like you're having a lot of problems with your current provider.
What percentage of people...
I mean, I understand it. Listen, at Hilton, we're for the stay. We're the best place to work in the world.
Don't treat the rooms properly. They leave the room in such a mess that you really have to... It's just embarrassing. I mean, does that happen very much or not really?
Yeah, is that a serious question? It happens all the time. I mean, I used to, when I was growing up, I grew up right across the river. It was like misspent youth. It's like, we always used to say, don't treat your car like it's the rent-a-car. Like, when you had the rent-a-car, you could do road trips and like trash it. Well, I think like hotel rooms a lot of times are like the rent-a-car. Like people feel like they do unseemly things periodically.
All right.
And sometimes those unseemly things leave a mark, but we take care of it.
All right, the most important thing you want people, a final question, to know about Hilton. If you could, people walk away from here, and they're going to think about Hilton tonight. What is the most important thing you want them to think about when it comes to Hilton?
We are singularly focused on delivering the best stay experience, period, end of story. Whether we always do, my guess is we don't, but we try really hard, and if we get it wrong, we'll fix it.
And if somebody has a complaint, you can give us your email, and we can...
Chris.Nasetta@Hilton.com. I respond to every email.
Chris, you've done a great job. I wish I had invested in the Hilton early on, but we looked at the deal.
You should have bought it. You let Blackstone
we looked at it, but we thought we had to do due diligence, and we did too much due diligence.
Hey,
and we
next
got nervous.
time you got to move a little faster.
Okay, next time I will. All right, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Please welcome Chairman and CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon.
So, Jamie, you're now in your 20th year?
Yes.
20th year?
Yeah.
So, when you took over 20 years ago, did you ever think you'd be doing this for 20 years?
I didn't give it much thought. I'm thrilled to be here, everybody. Go free enterprise.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. So after 20 years, your market capitalization is up about, I guess it's about 700%, and your stock price is up about 500% or something like that?
Like 1,000%, but go ahead.
Right. How much?
We paid back, we bought back a lot of stock and paid a lot of dividends and all that, so yeah.
So it's pretty good. So people are very happy. And so the question you get asked every day, 5 times a day, is how much longer do you want to do this? And the answer is 5 more years?
Yeah, at least.
About 5 more years?
I love what I do. It's up to the board how long I do it. As long as I have the energy and the spit in the eye and the fire in the gut, yeah, I want to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you recently built a new building in New York. Why did you decide to build your headquarters in New York? You tore down the building you had, built a new building, took a couple years and cost maybe $3 billion or something like that, and it's now open. Are you happy you made that decision, and are you going to build a similar building in London now?
Yeah, we are. So if you look at what we have, we spend $40 billion a year on people, which is important, $4 billion a year on real estate. We want to have great real estate. The old building wasn't fit for purpose. It was too small, couldn't handle our trading floors. I looked everywhere. I looked downtown, I looked at Hudson Yards, I looked at buying Vanderbilt, but we could tear that building down, we could buy air rights. I thought it was the best location in the best city, and then we should build it there. We're quite happy we did it. It's beautiful. It's got 14 places to eat, got Morgan's Pub, Guinness beer. It has sushi bars and hamburger and daily provisions. People like Denny Myers helped us make sure it had the right vibes when you go there. It's got sweet greens, 8 trading floors, full city blocks. Yeah, it's a beautiful place, and people like going there, and people are bringing their moms and dads and kids to show it. When you walk in, it's also got a big American flag up front blowing in the wind inside. And so, yeah, I love it.
So recently, you've been talking about the importance of the United States and are celebrating our 250th, but also investing in things that are security related. What made you focus on that? And you're now going to commit, $1.5 trillion over the next 10 years for this kind of investment. Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah. So I've always been a patriot, and you talk here about growth, growing the economy and the grievances of America, which is a lot of legitimate ones we've got to deal with and get policy right. But one of them was this notion that we ended up being so reliant on other people, some potential adversaries, for things critical to the security of the United States. And it wasn't just us, it was our allies too. So we did some real research across 28 industry groups, and you're talking about rare earths, which you all know about, active pharmaceutical ingredients, which some of you may know about, obviously military production, drones, air, cyber, satellite. What are the things you need for resiliency? That we already did a lot of it, and we wanted to do more, realizing it was an important thing to do. How we got here, I don't like crying over spilled milk, but we should never have been here. So that's $1.5 trillion. My guess is it'll be quite a bit more than that by the time we're done. We've had a deluge of interest in it. Then we hired Todd Combs, who's just a world-class investor and a world-class person who's got his own deluge coming in to invest $10 billion and probably more, and we certainly probably have partners in that, in helping companies with growth capital they need to grow, to build the next plant or something. We did real research on supply chains. There's a lot of companies that provide what's important for basic, important military equipment that need help to grow. They could be private companies or bigger companies. There's a venture capital component. We're also going to do research. So think around the shipbuilding ecosystem, and policy. There are a lot of things that are wrong or policy reasons, how we're allowed to procure in the military, things like permitting, EPA laws. You know, if you want to keep this country safe and secure, we need to do this work. We need to do it now and right away. It also will be extended to, you know, nations in Europe, you know, Australia, Japan, South Korea, Australia, et cetera. And it's just important we do it. National security. You know, if you didn't get the wake-up call in February when, you know, 300,000 Russian troops invaded Ukraine, you know, the world's not safe. It was never safe. We just got lulled into a false sense of security. The biggest safe thing to have is the strongest military on the planet.
So, Jamie, you went to Harvard Business School, graduated as a Baker Scholar, top 5% of your class. You could have gone to Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, all the famous firms. You chose to go work for a person who was a friend of your father's. Name is Sandy Weil. You did that, and then when Sandy left, you stayed with him, and then ultimately you guys went to Citicorp, and then he fired you. And did you ever think then that you'd be coming back and running the most important bank in the world at the time you got fired there? Or what were you thinking at that time? And I said you should come into private equity. I went to see you, and I said, why don't you come to private equity? And you didn't seem that interested. But
the biggest money offer I ever got in my life was from this guy over here. It was never about money for me. And I knew after I got fired that they were going to screw up Citi, because I knew how stupid some of the things they were doing was. But no, and I didn't think that way. I just, you know, I took time. I thought about all these various alternatives. I spoke to a lot of people, you know, and then I went to Bank One. I loved the Home Depot guys. They were talking to me, and but I had to confess to them when I walked in, I'd never been in a Home Depot until my friend made me go that weekend before I had dinner with Arthur Blank, Bernie Marcus, and Ken Langone. And I just loved their culture, but I'd never been in a merchant business, and I'd been in, you know, kind of the Wall Street trading, you know, insurance, et cetera. But, you know, Bank One was there. I thought it was going to be tough. I put half my money into it. I had moved my money to Chicago. I love Chicago. And all I thought about is just do the best you can. I mean, I don't like it when senior people complain. I always had a no whining sign. Suck it up and do the job. That's all it was. And I just go about the work, you know, and you know, division by division, person by person, department by department, tech by tech, you know, try to build something great. I had my eye on J.P. Morgan Chase, and you know, a couple of years, I thought it would never happen because we were so small and not doing well. But you know, 4 years later, we had, you know, done a good job at Bank One. The values were close enough. Bill Harris and I know each other. We merged the two companies. Then I had a dream that if we did it right, we could make this a great company. Then I really did. Like that was.
What do you think is the most important thing you did that put J.P. Morgan ahead of every other bank in the world? What is it? Is it that you worked harder? You hired better people around you? What were the things that you think they're most important thing that made J.P. Morgan what it is today?
First of all, a lot of people do things better. So to say we're the best and everything is not right. And I think that's one of the reasons sometimes we do better a little bit, which is, you know, I'm relentless. Detail, facts, analysis, no bullshitting, no meetings after meetings. Share all the information, put it on the table, put the dead cats on the table. Go through system by system by system by system. Get out in the road, you know, visit other companies. They all do things better than you. Learn, and be relentless about doing it. Big companies slow down, they become complacent, they become bureaucratic, all that stuff, arrogant, you know, is the petri dish of politics. You know, as Jeff Bezos says, you know, that kind of stuff leads to stasis and death. And if you don't believe me, you know, you look at all the companies who failed, huge, wonderful companies. And, you know, it was because of things like that. So I'm kind of relentless about driving stuff. Nothing's too small to care about. So when I go around my company, I was listening to you talk about, you know, Chris running Hilton. Nothing's too small to care about. You know, hey, Chris, I want to be able to read when I'm having shampoo or conditioner, okay? That's my one big beef. And also, one button to turn off all the lights when you get into these fancy rooms or something like that.
I know.
And you're tired and you're going to go to bed. So that's what management is. It's relentless attention to detail, getting strategy right, investing your capital, not being beholden to people. But the most important is that the people at the company can contribute to the best of their ability. They know that you, the boss, don't know everything, and they know that you just want to do the right thing for the company, the client, or the community. And that's the only goal. There's no other goal. We don't pander to Wall Street about, you know, quarterly earnings or stuff like that. I've never spent any time in that in my life. Just try to do the right thing for the right reason and do it quickly.
Now, you used to, I don't know if you still do this, how technologically proficient you are, but you used to come in every morning with a list of things to do. You wrote it down on the handwriting.
I hesitate to do this because there's TV out there, and So the TV's going to zoom in on it. I did that once with a credit card. They took my number and immediately got stolen by criminals. And yeah.
So,
Does anything bad about the press on here?
Okay, so now many people in the business world, they're out socializing, all kinds of other organizations. You don't do anything. You just run your bank and you spend time with your family. Isn't that boring?
No. I love my family. I love all of them. I got 7 grandkids and 1 more coming. We take our family vacations together. That's the most important thing. The second most important is my country, that I do spend time on. With my own time, my own effort. My company obviously gets involved. I love business. I think if she's talking about I don't do a lot of black ties. I don't play golf. I don't do red carpets. I do a little bit, but I love what I do. I mean, it's not like, I don't feel like I have any regrets at all about doing that. And I feel, if JP Morgan Chase does well, I can help our employees, I help my clients, I help my communities, I help my country, I help the world, if I do a good job. I always tell people, if we don't keep JP Morgan healthy and vibrant, I cannot do those things. That's when the other side of that. You gotta lay people off, it's miserable, your life is terrible, and so I fight hard to make sure we're healthy and vibrant.
Now, you flirted at times with maybe running for president of the United States. Are you still thinking maybe you would ever do that?
Yeah, I never really flirted with it.
Oh.
I simply asked someone once, what does it entail?
Okay.
And they told me. That was it.
All right.
And it entails a lot.
Well,
I mean, it is a huge thing, but I love what I do, and this is what I intend to be doing.
Right.
So,
suppose a president of the United States said, I'd like you to be Secretary of the Treasury or Chairman of the Federal Reserve Board. What would you say to that?
Well, Chairman of the Fed, I'd put in the absolutely, positively, no chance, no way, no how, for any reason.
Okay.
Secretary of Treasury, I would consider, if a president calls you up and asks you to do something, you should consider it. So I would take the call and consider it and think about why and what they want, et cetera. But what they want and how they want to operate, that would be important to me. I like my job. I've been my own boss for pretty much 25 years, and I like it that way. I was in Peru at the APEC meeting or something like that, and I was coming on stage like this, a televised thing, and as I was walking up, the person who questioned me, I think it was from Bloomberg, said, the president just tweeted that he likes you or something like that, but you're not going to be Secretary of Treasury. And she asked me on national TV. I said, that's good because I like being my own boss.
So when
we both like it that way.
When the Great Recession happened, were you worried about the viability of our financial system? Your bank was in pretty good shape. Were we worried that many investment banks and commercial banks were going to go under at that time?
Yeah. Well, a lot of them did. And yeah, a lot of companies around the world, a lot of non-banks around the world went bankrupt. JP Morgan, we did a lot to keep people afloat. We took a lot of risks to do that. We worked with governments around the world. It was terrifying. And it was, 24/7, and, people were just trying to do the right thing to make sure, we kept the...
Do you think there's a chance of something like that happening next couple of years? Do you think we're much better protected from that kind of problem?
Well, there's no chance that you're going to have that kind of problem. But, there are chances to have a problem somewhere, somehow. The biggest unknown is geopolitics, and it's not like, and you have to be dangerous and careful you talk about it. It's not like that's going to determine what the economy does in 2026, but it is a moving tectonic plate. Alliances, obviously there's terrible war in Ukraine, which we need to do as much as we can to help Ukraine, but aided and abetted by and Russia, somewhat by China. Those folks have told you what they want to do. They want to dismantle the system set up, they think, by America, but it's set up by the Western world. After World War II, has been quite successful. Yeah, there are a lot of forces at play, and and people are going to have to choose, how they want to play this for now. So yeah, that would be my greatest concern, and that's about the future of the free democratic world. That's not just about America.
Are you worried about the over-regulation that some people in the banking world think that is occurring now, or do you think the regulations are okay now?
Yeah, my biggest, the problem with regulations, when you talk to some people, it's always act like it's more or less. Well, and a lot of you deal with regulations. I think you can create more liquidity in the system, more capital uses, more lending capability, reduce rules and regulations which cause, when there's complaints about debanking and complaints about X, I think we could make the system better, work better, cheaper, work for more Americans, and safer. You know, and what bothers me the most is when we talk about regulations, that no one ever steps back and say, what are we trying to accomplish? Or why do we want to accomplish it? And what's better, this or that? Because no matter what you do, there are pros and cons. So like, take the system as, you know, banks are very strong today, but take the system as a whole. We've gone from 8,000 public companies to 4,000 public companies. Is that what we wanted? Because that's what we did. We did it with no forethought, without even thinking about it. But it was, you know, years of rules and regulations that made it costly and litigious and hard. And, you know, we let institutions like ISS and Glass Lewis, you know, vote 30% of the shares in America. You know, and so, yeah, I'm quite concerned about that we get regulations right. We all want safe financial system, and safe food, and safe, but it doesn't mean you have to have endless regulations. Regulations should be reviewed and improved all the time, as opposed to what we do today. I put that in a lot of policy. We just add things on top of things. And if you look at policy in America, well, our affordable housing, it's all about policy. You know, zoning policies, permitting policies, housing policies. You know, it's all about policy. It's got not a damn thing to do that people don't want to build homes or move into homes. You know, and I could say the same about a mortgage business. We made it more expensive because of rules and regulations. Education, you know, we don't measure the outcomes of high schools and community colleges and colleges. How many jobs do they get at what income levels? And we can do it. So look at work skills. We're going to need 200,000 welders. We need welding schools. So if government's going to have policy, it should have policy that aids and abets and incents and has the guardrails to create the right behaviors, you know, not endless policies that like slow things down, which is what we have. You know, we're slowly going the way of Europe. You know, Europe, you may not know this, has gone from 90% per person GDP of America to 65%. That's what they've done. It was all policy. A lot of the policy done in the name of good. And that's what we do all the time. We're endless, you know, rules and regulations that create these things. I also think you all should learn to call it not red tape, but blue tape. Blue tape. Okay, the Democrats love that crap. And then they want to make it litigious. You know, that every flaw that ever happens is on purpose by bad people. So policy, we need good policy. And we're going to be fighting much more for good policy this year at JP Morgan.
So recently, there's been some comment by you about the independence of the Federal Reserve Board. What more might you want to say about your view about the importance of the independence of the Federal Reserve Board?
Yeah, you know, there are people, too much ink gets spilled on certain things. Everyone I know, including the President of the United States, says we need an independent Fed board. Most people I know, including the President of the United States, speak up about their opinion, which they're free to do. Some say it more aggressively than others. That's their right. The question is only about when certain things take place, and think of lawsuits and stuff like that, does it chip away at that independence to some spectrum? So you can say a little bit, you can say a lot, but you don't want to chip away too much, because if you chip away too much, in my view, this is my opinion, it will drive rates higher, not lower. That's all.
And that's not a job you would take. If the President of the United States said to you, I'd love you to be the chairman, you'll be very independent, you wouldn't take that?
I would so much more prefer this job than that job. That's a hard job, but I don't want to do that job.
Okay. So Warren Buffett more or less invented the idea of writing a letter to shareholders that everybody reads. You have done the same, and now Warren Buffett's probably not going to write his letter anymore, and yours is widely read. How much time do you put into writing that letter, and do you get nervous that so many people are going to pay attention to every single word? You have to get it exactly right?
Yeah, I do all of that. So first of all, I've been reading his letters my whole life, and in fact, I got his letters from 1956 when it was a partnership in private, and he said you should speak to your shareholder like it's your smart sister or mother or something like that, and explain to them what you're doing and why you're doing it. So I do that. I make a list of questions. I get the questions. I do it myself. I ask shareholders. I get my management team, or like, what is the most important stuff for JP Morgan, and I kind of make that list. I start writing. I spend a lot of time on it. Very often I use it to answer the question. I don't know the answer, and I actually do the work. So now I'm like doing a lot of research while I'm writing the letter to answer the question, what are we going to do? Is what we did the right thing? Should we do more of it? How are we going to use AI or open banking or whatever the question is, debanking? What is the real issue? Then I try to explain it in terms to our people. And then I started doing public policy, because no bank is actually much stronger than the country it lives in. And, and Suzanne showed you that 3% growth versus 1% growth. You don't know how accurate that is about what it does. So I had done, this goes back, but America from 2000 to 2020 grew 2% a year. Had it grown 3% a year, which I think was eminently achievable, our GDP per person would be $20,000 more a year today, per person, which would afford a lot of safety nets, a lot of infrastructure, have a lot of taxes, and we didn't do it. And it's around basic things, so I started to do more of that. What are the things that we could do that can foster growth, secure the country, make it a healthier place, lift up all of our citizens? Here's another one, almost all of the bad policies we have, the thing that inner city schools don't work, immigration policy, some of the stuff we do in immigration, permitting policies, schools, almost all of that hurts lower paid people more than anyone in this room. So in some ways, we could ignore it because it's not really affecting us directly, because your kids don't go to those schools. You're not as worried about that. The lower income folks have worse health care, worse job prospects. It's become intergenerational. Their schools don't work. They have more crime. And that's what we did. That was us. That was all policy. And then people stand behind ideology and morality, on both sides, thinking that they did stuff to fix it, and they didn't. And so I have a frustration around that. And obviously, I feel the same way about the security and resiliency things like permitting. I always make a list of how we do with mortgages and affordable housing. So we may start a new one called the American Dream. We do a lot to do mortgages, affordable housing, health care, skills, jobs. I would double the earned income tax credit or something like that. There are a lot of things we could do that would grow to 3% and help all of our citizens and secure the nation. And we better do it pretty quick, because on the security side, we don't have forever.
Now, are you worried about the size of the U.S. debt? We have $38 trillion of debt. We're adding $2 trillion every year. Do you see any way that's going to be solved? And do you worry that this is going to impact the value of the dollar at some point?
Yeah, so so I agree with Chris. If you look at the economy today, there's a lot of good short-term things. Like, think of this year. The one big, beautiful bill, there's a lot of stimulus. The Fed is buying bonds again. That's, they don't call it QE. I would, but it lifts up asset prices and stabilizes certain markets. Deregulation is real, and it's going to also drive animal spirits. A lot of investment coming to the United States and AI. That's all good, and that's probably going to drive stuff. I call this geopolitics and the deficit. I call those more like tectonic plates. They're difficult. They're moving. They may crash. We don't know, and we don't know when. So it isn't a 2026 issue, but our deficit is almost $2 trillion this year. Our total debt is $30 trillion. Then it's going to be next year 32, then 34, then 37, then 40. It is not sustainable. It will not work eventually. I just don't know when that is. The best anecdote is growth. I mean, if you just model anything, growth will make up for it. And growth, I always tell people, good policy is free. Good policy is free, for God's sakes. Like, we already spent $800 billion in K-12. Stopping people from building stuff, it's free. It'll create jobs, it'll create productivity. And so, yeah, that I do quite worry about that. I think that when we have time. We have time to get the policy right, to grow the economy, and then we're going to have to start making some other choices too.
So you know Warren Buffett and you admire him. Recently you hired somebody that was working for Warren Buffett and to come do some investing for you. Was that difficult to call Warren Buffett and say, I'm taking one of your people, or he didn't really care?
No, because I think it's a free country and people can make their own decisions. And I did call Warren, and he probably wouldn't have preferred it, but he said if he's going anywhere, at least he's going to you. He was on my board, so I knew him. And I'm thrilled to have him. He's just a high-class individual, brilliant investor. I have a lot of incoming ideas to invest in. So you're going to see us do investments in some of these security and resiliency-related companies, from the venture side to more of a merchant banking, large type of deal or something like that. So, but he was an individual. He'd been with Warren for 16 years. He loved it. He was already thinking about what he really wanted to do in the next stage of his life. But this was like a patriotic move. It's different. He's loving it. He has an office on our floor. He's seen people we all know all the time, and it's been just a great add to the company. So,
of all the things you do, is the most enjoyable getting to meet with members of Congress? When you come down here, is that an uplifting experience when you come down to meet with members? How do you like that?
So you should know, I do it all the time. I think it's, it's part of my job. Like years ago, I said, government is another line of business. It is. We take it seriously, and to make an important point here, and the Chamber does this, which I think they do a great job. Congratulations, Suzanne and Ross. You got to get engaged. It's very easy to say no. There are a lot of people in the Congress, House and Senate, who want to do the right job. And they need help to do the right job. I'm not insulting their intelligence, they're quite bright, but they need the research, the facts, the analysis to figure out what to do when these complex issues come up. So I think we all need to do it. And the only thing I would urge you all to do when you do it, don't always make it parochial about your own self-interest. It should also be about what's in the interest of the United States of America. You're all going to do fine anyway. And there's just too much. This happens from everyone. It happens from unions and government and businesses where the self-interest is so high, it actually is part of why we have 2% growth. And I think we should all open our eyes a little bit and make sure we do the right things. It's okay to fight for for your own interest, but there's too much of that going on.
A lot of people in the top levels of financial world have found it difficult to have only one spouse. You've managed to have one spouse for how many years now?
I have a wonderful, unbelievable spouse, but one is enough.
Okay. All right. And so what do you do in your spare time? I mean, you can't be working all the time. Do you have any hobbies? Do anything other than worry about the JP Morgan?
Yeah. So my daughters, who I also love deeply, and I have wonderful son-in-laws, one said to me, "Dad, you need more hobbies." And I was like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" We take all our family vacations together, around the world. We enjoy it. I love history, I love wine, I love music, I love reading, I love arts, we watch movies together. That's what I like.
Okay.
I'm not looking to do other stuff. And we hike together. We used to play tennis together. I can't play tennis anymore. So that's what I like. Those are my sports. We all do the gym together. We have lunches and dinners together. We have family dinners almost every Saturday or Sunday night. That's what I like, and that's what I'm going to do until I'm no longer here.
And have you ever had your credit card denied? You have a lot of. Has anybody ever denied Jamie Dimon?
Yes. My own credit card has denied me several times, and I'm sitting there.
And what do you do? You tell them who you are?
Well, it doesn't work to tell them who you are. They don't know who I am. Fortunately, I'm usually with someone else, and I said, "Take your card out." But sometimes it's for very good reason, because the card was stolen. And that number would be used, and they just want to stop it. We have better algorithms now where, even if my card was stolen, if I'm going to the same restaurant I've always gone to, it can get approved. Even though the number is already out in the marketplace trying to be used to buy TVs or jewelry somewhere or something like that. The most annoying, and I get these complaints, and very often I get complaints, they say, "Well, that's our rules." They say, "Yeah, that may be our rule, but it's not the way to treat someone." And, we had someone who didn't pay, a very good client. They had a credit card. They spent, thousands of dollars a month. They always didn't pay on time, which happens to some of you too. And then the wife went to buy a bagel at a bagel store, and it got turned down. And I'm like, really? Really? Is that how we should treat her? Change the goddamn policy, and because they hadn't paid a $100 minimum balance or something like that. No. So yeah, you have to fight hard to make everything better all the time. And the first way you do that is you and your teams should read these things, like customer complaints, go to the call centers, go to the branch. I ask people at the branch, what's the biggest complaint you have? And sometimes they tell me, I say, why do we do that? Why would we do that? From opening, I remember going in Chicago, it was freezing out, and the branch was supposed to open at 10, there's all day hanging out, it's 10, it's 10:01, and they finally open the branch. And they say, well, that's the rule. They can't open until 10. I said, when that little lady's next time, open the door. Give her a hot cup of coffee. So now I mandate, they got to open the doors, which we better still be doing, by the way, 10 or 15 minutes ahead of time. I don't want to hear that crap. Treat people the way you want to be treated, and if our policies don't work, rewrite them.
Now, did your parents live to see your success, and what did they say? Did they say, we always knew you were going to be the CEO of JP Morgan and was going to do well, or what did they say?
My mom had a little of that. You'll be a general one day or something like that. But they both died in 2016, literally together in the same bed, within 12 hours of each other. So they got to see a lot of it, and we're quite proud. My grandparents were all Greek immigrants who didn't finish high school, so I'm part of that story. And they instilled in all of us, values, and the values were have a purpose, work hard, make the world a better place, treat everyone properly and equally. And they got to see that, so they're proud of all of their sons. My twin brother's an educator. My older brother is a physicist, and so it wasn't about. My dad was a broker, but it wasn't about going to financial services. It was about making the world a better place. Values I'm sure a lot of you have.
Do you have a twin brother?
I have a twin brother.
And is that easy being Jamie Dimon's twin brother, you think?
No, he loves me, and vice versa, and having a twin brother is an unbelievable thing. And so of course early on we fought and up. He got close over time. We adore his wife. He comes over to a lot of those family dinners. And when I had cancer, he came to see me every freaking day.
And you're fully recovered now from your cancer?
Yeah, no, I'm fully recovered, yeah.
And how many times do people think that you are, because you're in the financial service world, you're Jewish? You get a lot of that? Did you get a lot of
it's that, and my name is Dimon, but it would have been Demetriou. So it was like an Ellis Island shortened name. And my wife's last name was Kent, and she is Jewish. So a lot of people do.
So final question.
But my kids, I hate anti-Semitism. So let me just make that clear. It should be fought everywhere, all the time.
Final question. What would you like people to know the most about J.P. Morgan? If they walk away from here today, what would you like people to take back in their head about J.P. Morgan, about what it is, what it's done, or what it stands for?
That we will stand by good clients in thick or thin, that we always try to be better, that we are strong, but that strength is for you, that we want the community to be better, we want your companies to be better, we want the country to be better. We'll do our part making this a better world. And we do it with a forethought and with every sinew of our bodies to try to do the best we can. And God knows we make mistakes. We will say we made a mistake, we're sorry, and we'll fix it. That's what we'll do. And
well, congratulations on your success. Thanks for being here.
David, thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Folks, thank you very much.
Please welcome CEO of Madison Air and Vice Chair of the Board of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Jill Wyant.
Well, I am feeling very inspired today, and Chris, I will tell you, if you're still in the room, I am a delighted Hilton Diamond member, and I have never felt younger now that I know I'm the only person who can read the products in the bathroom. We walk away today armed with new insights thanks to the conversations we have been lucky to hear today, and thank you, Suzanne, for your very powerful statement of purpose, and to the business leaders who shared their various perspectives. Much like Ross, I am very proud to serve on this board. It's an essential and history-defining institution at a pivotal moment in our country's history, and I serve because the U.S. Chamber is dedicated to building a brighter future. At the center of the Chamber's mission are the American people, people with real lives and real stories who come to work each day with struggles and fears and dreams and goals. And people who pursue the American dream, the promise that only America can deliver. As I was preparing to come here, I pulled out, my grandmother came to this country over 85 years ago from Sweden. And about almost 86 years ago, she was selected to give the speech at her naturalization ceremony, along with 1,200 newly minted Americans. And I reread her remarks, and she had said, I had heard of the opportunities and privileges that are to be had in America, and I wanted to share in them, so I came alone across the ocean. 85 years later, I stand here in this room of dreamers and doers because of my grandmother's fearlessness. My family and I are a product of the American dream, and each and every one of us is a product of the American dream, able to do what we do in the context, in the framework of democracy and free enterprise. And so the Chamber's mission, have no doubt, will always be about expanding opportunity for everyday Americans and for building up the next generation of citizens, business people, entrepreneurs, dreamers, and change makers. And so as we look ahead, I want to share a bit of what's next for the Chamber and the business community in 2026. First, advocacy will remain center plate for the organization, and throughout the year, the U.S. Chamber will galvanize around advocacy efforts to drive the American 3% growth initiative that Suzanne spoke so eloquently about. You'll see us building momentum for permitting reform that enables key projects to break ground quickly and efficiently, another round of historic investment in this country's critical infrastructure, and the Chamber will champion a common-sense national approach to AI regulation that will protect innovation while addressing real risks. We will advance legal reform that balances the scales and reduces the danger of frivolous lawsuits that harm and target businesses, and continue to expand and upskill this country's workforce, ensuring that we as businesses have access to the talent we need and that Americans continue to have pathways to prosperity and opportunity. Second, the Chamber will continue to serve as America's foremost private sector commercial diplomat. And that's super important given that America will host the G20 this year, meaning the U.S. Chamber will lead the business counterpart of that international convocation, the B20. The B20 will serve a number of roles, not the least of which is showcasing innovation and investment in America. And third, the Chamber will also lead programming designed to build up the next generation of informed citizens and business leaders, some of whom, like my high school son Jake, are in the room with us today. Through programs like the National Civics Bee, which is held in this very room, and through partnership with the College Board to bring advanced placement classes on business principles and personal finance to high schools across this nation, or through the Rising Policy Leaders Community, which convenes corporate leaders, some of the senior-most rising executives in their organizations, to develop their policy and advocacy skills to build the kind of coalitions that drive results in Washington. Several of the members of the Rising Policy Leaders community are with us today, so my heartiest congratulations to the class of 2026. This promises to be a monumental and transformative year for our country. And as Suzanne told us, as business people, we have the power to really choose a future of growth for the next generation. It is precisely what the U.S. Chamber of Commerce does best. It looks around corners, it convenes the right voices, and perhaps most importantly, it turns insights into real action. We lead for growth, we create opportunities, and we equip leaders like those in this room to rise up and meet this moment. Together, we are building the future of business in the United States of America. And so we thank you for spending the afternoon with us. This concludes this year's State of American Business, and please do join us for the closing reception right next door in the Briefing Center. Thank you.
The State of American Business continues in the Briefing Center. Please make your way there now for this evening's reception.